In this video, I'm breaking down every Anomaly agent released from patch 1.0 all the way to the latest update. How good are they? How fun are they? How they performed at launch and how they're doing today. And by the end, we will find out whether Anomaly is still on top or if the class finally fell off. With the beginning of the game, we got access to the first two Anomaly agents, Grace and Piper. Let's begin with Grace. Grace launched in patch 1.0 as one of the only two Anomaly agents in the entire game, and the options around her were depressing. Her additional ability activated with shock or bellowbug characters, which meant you were only able to run Rina or Anton. If you paired her with Anton, you would slap thunder metal on him and you would shock the enemy with Grace, and then you would penetrate them crazy style with Anton. Later, Anton got replaced by Harumasa. This kind of team works, but it's not that good. Your other 1.0 option was the first real Anomaly comp, Grace, Rina and Piper. It worked, but it was clunky as hell. And back then nobody understood Anomaly anyway. Everybody just ran Yuzuha, Ellen, Soldier 11, other characters basically. The Grace, Rina, Piper trio is still technically functional today, but every slot has been replaced by a better character at this point. When new Anomaly agents arrived, Grace finally got real teams. Burnice was the first off-field Anomaly unit and instantly became her best partner. Then Vivian dropped and just straight up did everything Burnice did but better. And after that we got Yuzuha, the best Anomaly support in the game. These three are the only reasons Grace still works in the current meta. As for how she plays today, she's actually fun. 1.0 agents didn't have built-in dodges or parries, so you have to pay attention, which makes her more engaging. She has a lot of downtime, and her special and ultimate knock her backward, which can break your flow, but the core gameplay is enjoyable. Today, Grace is a niche unit. She can work as a scuffed sub DPS for Miyabi and Alice if you don't have anyone else, but her real value is as a main damage dealer paired with Yuzuha and Vivian slash Burnice. If you built her back in the day, you might still occasionally use her, but if you still haven't built her, there's no real reason to start unless you really like her. By the way, they're buffing her. Oh my god. Piper dropped in 1.0, and just like Grace, she was completely slept on. Not because she was bad, but because she had absolutely no teams. Anomaly barely existed as a meta. The only Anomaly comp was Piper Grace, and almost nobody was running that. And honestly, I think one of the reasons people ignored her was because of her really ass design. Like, her design didn't really stand out to me. Even when I started the game, I'd never thought about building her, but it's grown on me, it's alright. But despite being ignored, Piper turned out to be one of the best A-rank DPS agents in the entire game. Her damage is comparable to Jane and even Alice, both F-rank limited agents, and she's an incredible investment if you don't have those two. Even if you do have them, I would argue having a strong DPS never hurt anybody. When the Fiend boss released, a boss that's both Anomaly weak and physical weak, Piper suddenly became extremely valuable for players who didn't have Alice or Jane. And if you really wanted to, you could even put Jane or Alice's engine on her for a noticeable power boost. I personally wouldn't recommend that though, but the option was there. As for gameplay, she's fine. You watch Anomaly cooldowns, weave in your basics, a special attack, ultimate, chain attack, your usual Anomaly flow. Just make sure you're not getting hit mid-spin, because she can't dodge during it. By the way, doesn't mid-spin sound like mid-spin? If you know, you know. Where does she stand today? She's great. I would 100% recommend her if you don't have Jane or Alice, and even if you do, having an extra strong DPS never hurts your account. Piper is great. I've already mentioned this a few times in different videos, but I've cleared with a level 20 Piper. Don't sleep on her, please. Jane dropped in patch 1.1 as the first limited Anomaly agent in the game, and she was the moment Anomaly went from weird niche playstyle to goated and cracked as hell. I think her design and her trailer made the whole community go feral. I didn't even play ZZZ back then. I didn't play any gacha game, but every time I opened Instagram, or you know, when I was jerking off, I noticed her. Anyway, off topic. Point is, she had hype. On release, she was fine, just held back by her teams. She didn't have many options at first, but she was already doing more damage than Grace and Piper, and literally the next patch she got exactly what she needed. In patch 1.2, Caesar and Burnice entered the game. Jane got her first real premium team, but after a few patches, something weird happened. She kinda stalled. New Anomaly agents were coming out, but they were all DPS, meaning she didn't get any new supports. And started getting a little squeezed by the meta. But in patch 1.7, Vivian grabbed her by the throat and dragged her back into relevancy once again. Vivian helped every anomaly agent, but John appreciated what the did I say John? But Jane appreciated her the most. Then Yuzuha showed up and suddenly Jane was even better. And here's the crazy part. Jane is one of the rare cases of an old character working with a new character. Jane and Alice don't just coexist together, but they fucking cook together. Cook! Mr. White! We have to cook, Mr. White! Mr. White! They cook together. And they cook pretty good. By the way, this comp only really works, you see the big damage with Jane M2. But even without that, it's still good. But not as good. But obviously, more money, more damage. But yeah, anyway, let's talk about her gameplay. She's a straightforward. She's very dodge heavy. Dash in, dash out. I'm not the biggest fan of her spin move. Feels slow. But everything else about her kit is smooth and fun to use. Where does she stand today? She's Jane. She's one of those characters everyone wants. No matter what happens, doesn't matter how much she falls off, she always bounces back. People say Miyabi is the face of the game. Some say Ambi. Others say Ellen. All of that. Jane is the real face of Zenless Zone Zero. I have killed many of my future children jerking it to Jane. Burnice dropped in 1.2 as the first real off-field anomaly unit, and she instantly elevated every anomaly team in the game. Her afterburn mechanic lets her pump out build-up and damage without actually being on field, which made Jane, Piper, and Grace feel noticeably better the moment she arrived. She just plugged into any disorder team and did her job with zero conditions or awkward setups. She fit the meta perfectly at the time. If you were running an anomaly core, Burnice was basically the default partner, simple, reliable, and always contributing. Later patches didn't really nerf her, but she did get overshadowed by Vivian. Vivian is basically Burnice with way more firepower, and once she released, Burnice naturally moved into the fine but not optimal category. Not to say that Burnice is bad, I'm just saying any single team in any scenario that Burnice could fit in, Vivian fits in and does the job better. That's it. She also might get buffed and do everything Vivian does, so they might become equal. She's 100% getting buffed. As for actually playing her, she's easy. Not really my thing because she drops in for 2 seconds, dumps her kid and leaves, but that's the life of an off-field character. She's simple, consistent, and doesn't demand anything from you. Today she's definitely not the strongest option compared to Vivian, but she's far from bad. Burnice still brings solid off-field damage and anomaly build-up, and she works in pretty much every disorder setup if you don't have her replacement. She's not meta-defining anymore, but she's still a clean, dependable pick for anomaly teams, and absolutely usable if you want a low-maintenance character who still contributes real value. Yanagi dropped in 1.3 right after Burnice, and she made an immediate impact. Not because she relied on Burnice, but because she actually had better early options. Rina and Nicole were free, powerful, and stupidly efficient, and together they let her drop 65k with a 1-cost team. For early game anomaly, she basically walked in and took the crown. Her real selling point back then, and the thing that kept her relevant for so long, was her ability to self-trigger disorder. No one else could do that at the time, and that single mechanic aged insanely well. It meant she didn't need a specific character to carry her or keep her viable. Vivian and Yuzuha gave her the same universal anomaly boost they gave everyone else, and teaming her with newer monsters like Alice or Miyabi does work. They love having someone who can draw out disorders easily. But make no mistake, Yanagi shines the most when she is the main DPS. That's where she shows her real power and drops the massive stupid numbers people still post clips of today. But she's a little bit falling behind these days, but again, I feel like if you're running her against any kind of electric weak boss, she will clear very nicely. She only has problem with bosses that are designed specifically to be against anomaly, but other than that, she's mostly fine. Gameplay wise, she's a blast. 2 stances, 2 movesets, constant buffs, smooth transitions, stylish, fast, and extremely satisfying. Easy to understand if you're casual, rewarding as hell if you want to optimize without ever feeling clunky. Yanagi is still top tier, one of the oldest agents in the game, yet still sitting near the top of the DPS charts. She reminds me of this saying, beware of an old man in a profession where men die young. She has been around since DPS 1.3, watched newer DPS come and go, and she's still dropping massive numbers like nothing happened. Flexible, powerful, and insanely satisfying to play. She remains one of the strongest and most reliable Anomaly DPS options in the game, and she's very nice. Hoshimi Miyabi dropped in 1.4 and the hype around her was unreal. The entire patch felt like a soft relaunch of the game, and Miyabi was the reason everyone came back, and the craziest part, she delivered. For a long time, she was the best DPS in the game. She didn't need a team, she was the damn team. There was always this debate about her being an attack character pretending to be Anomaly because she scales off of crit damage and crit rate, but the simplest way to look at it is this. Attack units deal damage with their moves, basically everything they do deals damage. Anomaly characters deal damage when they proc their Anomaly. Miyabi is weird because she deals damage through her moves, but she needs Anomaly mechanics to unlock those big hits. So she is still Anomaly, just Anomaly with a massive sword, but I have to say that these few patches she has been becoming a lot more Anomaly. She has been embracing her Anomaly heritage, but you can still use crit Miyabi and just fine, but Anomaly Miyabi keeps getting stronger. Anyway, on release, her best partner was Yanagi because Yanagi could pump out disorders non-stop and feed her stacks for that big hold basic, but people quickly figured out that Miyabi's real home was Mono Ice with Lycon and Sokaku. She basically stole Ellen's team. That team kept enemies permanently frozen and let Miyabi shred them with huge damage. I'm not a Mono Ice expert, I don't know why exactly does it work and why it's so good. I'm gonna leave a video in the description about Mono Ice that explains it way better than I could, but it was undeniably her strongest setup at the time. And the game loved Ice and also Ether back then. Deadly Assault basically handed her free real estate, multiple Ice Week bosses, back-to-back Shiyu stages that were also Ice Week, and also add the fact that she doesn't really even care about enemies being Ice Week. The entire endgame basically played into her strength, but even with all of that, you couldn't say she was only good because of the matchups, because even to this day she is actually very strong. She stayed at the top all the way into 2.0 when Yishuan came out. The game started fighting back with ice resistant bosses and enemies that couldn't be frozen. Funnily enough, that hurt other ice units way more than her. Miyabi was so busted, she pushed through all of it while everyone else struggled, and in 2.1 she got her biggest upgrade ever with Yuzuha, but she didn't need Yuzuha to stay relevant, she was already an absolute monster. Gameplay wise, Miyabi is smooth as hell but not very demanding. She attacks, builds stacks, dumps them, and that's it. She kind of repeats that. Her kit has tons of iframes, so she barely gets hit. You don't really get hit, you can easily masturbate while playing the game, it's so easy. She's not the most mechanically complex character, but if you're pushing for the fast clears or you want to kill in Deadly Assault, of course you have to play her very good. Anyway, easy to play, super clean, satisfying, just not the most high skill character. Today, she's still insanely powerful, even with Hoyoverse trying to counter her, she's standing tall. There's a reason people tell you to skip other ice characters and just pull Miyabi. Her power level is unmatched, and just to be clear, I don't even have her on my account. I'm not a Miyabi fanboy, I'm just telling you what the numbers have been saying for over a year. After 1.4, we basically went dry on new Anomaly characters all the way until 1.7, when Vivian finally dropped. She filled a similar role to Burnice, an off-field Anomaly unit, but the difference was obvious. Burnice was like this: I go off-field and I feel your Anomaly off-field and I trigger disorders. Vivian was: I go off-field, I feel your Anomaly off-field, I trigger disorders off-field, and I also amplify your damage a shit ton. She wasn't just proccing Anomaly, she was juicing your whole team. After Miyabi's dominance, a lot of Anomaly characters started to show their age a little. They weren't bad, they were just noticeably weaker when they were tackling the content after Miyabi. Vivian changed that instantly. She gave every single Anomaly agent I've talked about a huge boost. Grace, Jane, Piper, they all loved her. Yanagi didn't need her, but she definitely appreciated her and got even better with Vivian backing her up. Even Miyabi could use her. Personally, I would still run Yanagi or Mono Ice with her instead of Vivian, but having options never hurts. And funnily enough, she even helped the character she cut, Burnice. Running both together was a bit awkward, sure, but it worked, and it worked well. Since release, she has only gotten more and more valuable. She is just that goated. Her playstyle is extremely low maintenance. She's off-field, she does her thing with almost no effort. You pop her on-field sometimes to refresh her stuff, and then she's back to passively carrying your team. Right now, outside of Miyabi, Vivian is best in a slot pick for basically every Anomaly agent in the game. She's stupidly strong, universal, useful, and absolutely worth running. Alice came out in 2.1 after the biggest Anomaly drought we've ever had, and when she came, she really came. People immediately started arguing she's the third best DPS in the entire game right after Yuzuha and Miyabi. I'm not getting into that debate, but yeah, she came in swinging. When Alice dropped, she had access to every single Anomaly tool that existed before her. The only thing that held some people back from pulling her was the simple fact that we already had two physical Anomaly units, Jane and Piper. Jane was so popular that there's a 80% chance that the person who is currently watching this video has Jane, and Piper is just free. And Alice without her engine isn't so much better than them that she justifies a whole new investment by herself. Alice is the second character in the entire game with a self-disorder mechanic. She can't spam it as often as Yanagi, but her disorders hit way harder. And on top of that, she has something I call forced disorders. Normally in Zenless Zone Zero, we have a built-in 3-second cooldown on anomaly/disorder procs. But Alice can bypass that with her whole basic and force a disorder anyway. Since she was the first Anomaly DPS after Miyabi, you can tell they juiced her a lot. She has self-disorder, forced disorder, and even damage over time. She basically does everything. In terms of gameplay, Alice feels extremely similar to Miyabi. You gather your resources and then dump huge damage. But personally, I think she's a bit more fun. Miyabi has more downtime, but Alice always feels like she's doing something, and when those forced disorders land and that massive number pops up, it sends dopamine straight from my brain to my crotch. In the simplest terms, I come like a volcano. Right now, Alice is a fantastic Anomaly DPS who absolutely delivers. She naturally works incredibly well with Vivian and Yuzuha, but unlike a lot of other Anomaly agents who feel glued to them, Alice can also use other supports without falling off. She is extremely versatile. While most Anomaly units feel way more tied to Yuzu and Vivi, Alice can basically work with anything you have. She also works with both Miyabi and Yanagi, which is another huge plus. Overall, she's a strong, flexible, and extremely fun DPS. One of the best Anomaly options in the game. So, after all of this, how is Anomaly doing these days? What? There's another one left? I already talked about every Anomaly unit, right? Yuzuha? Yuzuha isn't an Anomaly agent, she's a support, bro. An Anomaly focused support. I'll talk about her too. Yuzuha on release was basically Vivian if Vivian decided to hit the gym, drink motor oil, and come back built like a nuclear reactor. And just like how Vivian elevated every Anomaly team, Yuzuha did the same thing, but pushed it to a nuclear level. She's fully dedicated to pumping your Anomaly DPS to absolute stupidity. More Anomaly built up, a 1200 attack buff, bonus damage, boost to disorder damage, and also she looks very hot. I want to grab her pigtails. Anyway, she literally gives everything an Anomaly agent could ever want all at once. She instantly became the driver of one of the best teams in the entire game, Mono Ice, and kicked Lycon out of his own house, forming the infamous Yuzu Ice setup that's been terrorizing bosses ever since. So, after all of this, how are Anomaly agents doing these days? Are the days of Anomaly over? Well, yes and no. Right before the 2.0 update, you could run 2 or even 3 different Anomaly teams and just wipe the floor with deadly assault and shield defense. If a boss gave you problems, you drew Miyabi at it and the problem disappeared. No attack teams, no rupture teams, just Anomaly, Anomaly, Anomaly. That was the meta. But after 2.0, the game started introducing bosses that resist Anomaly and also heavily counter Miyabi. The whole direction shifted. Suddenly, you're now running Attack and Rupture right alongside Anomaly, which is not a bad thing. But not because you want to, but because the game finally forced them into the spotlight. While I do think the way they went about this is kind of shit and extremely anti-consumer, making bosses that hard favor other archetypes, straight up removing Anomaly buffs, and accidentally screwing over other ice agents just because they wanted to slow down Miyabi, I would still say Anomaly is in a healthy state. And that's because we still have a place for Anomaly in every Shiyu and Deadly Assault cycle, I've been using my Anomaly teams and I have been completely fine. But instead of using 3, I'm using 1. I would say Anomaly is in a healthier spot. You actually rotate Anomaly, Attack and Rupture depending on the boss. But the way we got there is still absolute bullshit. Instead of naturally raising other archetypes up, they brute forced the shift by stuffing bosses with Anomaly resistance and ice counters. The end result is mediocre and the process was garbage. Anyway, if you want to support the content, the best thing you can do is watch more and subscribe. But if you are in a good financial spot and feel like helping out a bit extra, you can buy me some monochrome. The more resources I have in the game, the more content I can make. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out.
才不会让承诺被敷衍，不让真心被曲解。